Okay, let's dive right into this. We've all seen it happen. These massive, super expensive projects that promise the world and then just completely fail. So, what's the deal? What separates the successful projects from the total catastrophes? Well, the answer, pretty much every time, is about what you do before the storm actually hits.
And I mean, really, truly off the rails. The budget's exploding, the deadlines are just a distant memory, and everybody is in a total state of panic. It's a painful thing to watch, and it always feels like the disaster just came out of nowhere. But did it? Really?
If you look at the research from folks like the Standish Group, it's pretty clear that most project failures aren't some big surprise. They're the result of totally predictable problems. These little red flags that were waving early on but just got ignored. The real secret here isn't about being a great problem solver. It's about being great at seeing problems coming a mile away.
So to get out ahead of all this, we first need to make sure we're all speaking the same language. In project management, words like risk, issue, and change, they have super specific meanings. And getting these definitions right, it's the absolute foundation for taking back control.
All right, let's start with risk. A risk is just a potential problem in the future. It hasn't happened yet, but it could. Think of it exactly like a weather forecast that says there's a 90% chance of rain. You're not wet yet, right? But you better go find an umbrella.
Now, an issue is what happens when that risk becomes reality. The forecast was right, the sky opens up, and bam, you're standing in a downpour with no umbrella. An issue is a problem you have to solve right now. It's no longer a what if, it's a what now.
And that right there perfectly highlights the core difference. Managing risk is proactive. It's about looking into your crystal ball and trying to stop future problems from ever happening. Managing issues is reactive. It's firefighting. One is about shaping the future, the other is about surviving the present.
This table just lays it out so clearly. A risk is something that hasn't happened, and your goal is to prevent it. An issue, well, it's already happened, and now you have to resolve it. And a change, that's usually a formal decision you make because of an issue. So, for example, the risk of a testing delay can become the issue of an actual delay, which then forces you to make a formal change to the project timeline. See how they connect?
So why are we getting so hung up on definitions? Because understanding this difference between looking ahead and just reacting, it's probably the single biggest factor in whether a project succeeds or fails. It's the difference between steering the ship and just frantically plugging leaks as they pop up. When you actively start managing risks with something called a risk register, you basically get project superpowers. It's your early warning system. It gets everyone on the same page about what could go wrong. Decisions become proactive and smart, not panicked. And here's the kicker. Every single risk gets an owner, so nothing can just fall through the cracks.
Now, let's look at the flip side. A project without a risk register? It's just chaos. It's a world of constant firefighting, where the team is just bouncing from one crisis to the next. When a problem hits, you hear that classic line, "That's not my problem," because nobody ever decided whose problem it was. Leadership has no idea what's coming, and eventually the project has what looks like a sudden collapse, but honestly, it was predictable the whole time.
And look, this isn't just my opinion. There are decades of research on big projects that all say the same thing. The vast majority of failures are not from some random, unforeseeable event. They happen because of risks that people saw, or could have seen, but just didn't manage. The writing was on the wall all along.
Okay, so we're all on board, we get it. Managing risk is critical. But what does that actually look like day to day? Let's pull back the curtain and look at the anatomy of a risk register to see how it goes from being just a simple list to a really powerful strategic tool. At its heart, a risk register can be dead simple. Just a basic table. You give each risk an ID number, you write a clear description of the potential problem, you guess its probability and its impact, and here's the most important part. You assign an owner, someone whose job it is to keep an eye on it. That's it. That's the bare minimum.
But if you're working on some huge, complex global project, a simple list just isn't going to cut it. You need to be able to slice and dice your data. That's where this multi-axis classification comes in. By tagging each risk by phase, by business area, by region, you can suddenly start to see patterns. Like, whoa, are all our risks coming from the technical team? Is our team in China facing totally different challenges? This turns your list into real strategic insight.
So with all these risks, how do you prioritize? Well, a really common way is to just score them. You rate the impact, maybe on a scale of 1 to 5, and you do the same thing for probability. Then you just multiply them. So a high-impact, high-probability risk, like this one, an impact of 5 and probability of 4, gets a score of 20. And bam, it shoots right to the top of your list. It's a super simple but crazy effective way to focus your energy where it matters most.
But here's the absolute most critical point. The #1 reason this whole thing fails isn't because of a bad spreadsheet. It's because people forget that a risk register is a living tool. It's not a document you make once and then file away to die. It only works if it's part of a disciplined, ongoing process.
And that process is a constant loop. It never stops. You're always identifying new risks, analyzing them, planning how you'll respond, and then constantly monitoring the situation. The project changes, so the risks change. This cycle needs to become the regular heartbeat of the project team.
So who actually does all this work? This is where a governance model like a RACI chart becomes your best friend. RACI stands for responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. It spells out exactly who does what. The person on the ground might be responsible for flagging a risk, but maybe the global PMO is accountable for the whole process, and the big bosses on the steering committee just need to be kept informed. No ambiguity, no, I thought you were doing that, no excuses.
All right, let's bring this all home. If there is just one single thing you take away from all this, I want it to be the fundamental mindset shift that real risk management is all about.
And this quote says it all. Your job is not just to put out today's fires. It's to anticipate and shape what happens tomorrow. A good risk register isn't just a list of things to worry about. It's a playbook for actively taking control of the future and steering your project exactly where you want it to go.
So, I'm going to leave you with this one question to chew on. Think about whatever project you're working on right now. Is it just running blind, kind of hoping for the best and waiting for the next crisis to hit? Or does it have a clear view of the road ahead, totally ready for whatever's coming next? The choice really is up to you.